Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer, and this is a video about the new moon in Taurus taking place on May 19th at 11:53 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local time. It is a pleasure and honor to be here with you guys for another new moon lunar update. Real quick, if you want to jump into my calendar to take advantage of this, the last part of this season for planting new, doing new, calling it in, naming and claiming it, this kind of comes to an end in the next 10 days as we get into June. And then we're already in a new season now, but the old season of kind of manifesting stuff comes to a close at this month. There's a lot of overlap between the calling it in season and the season for watering and fertilizing, the manifesting it, and then the growing it. So that overlap kind of ends as we get to the end of May, and we go into a new season in June where there is significantly more focus on the cultivation of the seeds that we've planted in the first 4 months of the year. So if you've been still trying to figure out your situation with manifestation and how to make it all work, then you're welcome to jump into my calendar and we can talk it through before we close out May. There's some room there. Listen to the end, and I will give you guys the down low on what's coming up in the next lunar update and something that I call first look. At the end of this video, I'll tell you what the energy is like at the full moon in Scorpio in another 2 weeks. So I'm loving this energy. Um, I like seeing the way this energy is playing out. Let me get into this. Okay, perfect. Here we go. I like seeing the way this is playing out because at this new moon, there is just like a ton of fertility energy here in Taurus. You'll see that what was previously a large stellium in Aries is now a very large stellium in Taurus. There it is. And we've got a really nice combination of planetary players here, along with our new moon energy. This is an energy of nurturing a lot of the seeds we planted at the start of the year, as that's Taurus's jam, is nurturing, watering, fertility, growth. And we've got this new moon in sextile to Mars in Cancer. We've got this new moon in sextile to Neptune in Pisces here. We've got a trine to Pluto in Aquarius and a trine to Ceres down here in Virgo. And so, with the sextile to Mars and the sextile to Neptune, both speaking to this new moon, sextiles give us a lot of benefit, but only benefit that we're willing to work for. They don't just kind of show up as a blessing. And the way that trines do, they show up as, oh, you knocked? Yes, the door is open, but you have to knock first. And it's benefit through our efforts, our actions. And in this case, efforts and actions being tied to Mars and spiritual practice and intuition, tied to Neptune there. There's a lot of, when both of those things are put together, we get the universe really supporting our highest good and others' highest good too. And in this energy, as you begin to take steps in the early stages of new manifestations during this period of time, this is the kind of time where you'll see lots of signs, validation in the third dimension, lots of confirmation of how you can bring to bear what you've been planting January through April. So you may see kind of the third dimension really render a lot of, like, I don't know, numbers or personal signals that let you know, yes, you're on the right track. Keep going on what it is that you've been creating up until now. Your actions are certainly going to bring benefit and yield results. And so hopefully you're starting to see some of those validations, some of those signs that the universe, that God is bringing into your path. This Pluto and Ceres thing is very interesting because it facilitates what we as astrologers call a grand trine, which is when all of the energies sit at roughly 120 degrees apart from one another. And in so doing, they foster a megawatt influence on one another. And so there's a definitive ending of one era and a demarcation of the beginning of something new in a way that's showing itself both in our thinking, because there's plenty of air energy here, and in our third dimension with the earth placements as well, Ceres and Virgo, new moon up there in Taurus. Ceres itself, she deals with the seasonality of things as the goddess that taught humans from Mount Olympus. You know, her mythology has to do with teaching humans how to plant, how to sow, how to harvest. And she really brought the agrarian ability to humans so that we didn't have to hunt and gather, was kind of her story in the mythology. She had a daughter, Persephone, and Pluto took a liking to Persephone. And Pluto is one of the original kind of gods that were created and given dominion over one of the realms. He was given dominion over the realm of the underworld. When he took a liking to Persephone, he kind of lured her to the underworld. And when she went missing, because her mother didn't know where she was, her mother was distraught. And in going to search for her, when she moved into a period of grief after the loss of her daughter, her grief was so profound, it caused the crops to wither. It caused an ending to fertility and growth here on Earth. And that ending thing that we have going on, that is highlighted by Pluto's energy of governing the cycle of endings and new beginnings and the integration process in between, the growth process in between. And so, with both of them in harmony, the mutual energy they have between them is the energy of closure, the energy of completion, the end of a season, the end of an era. And so, this new moon in Taurus, even though new moons speak to new beginnings, the fact that so loudly we have two heavenly bodies that specifically talk about endings, speaking to the new moon, lets us know that this moment in time is a moment that's allowing us to close out an era while the new era is opening. So there's overlap. And you'll remember in the last lunar update, I talked about, actually the last couple, I even made a post about the Mercury retrograde that had this vibe to it in the community section. If you're not subscribed, subscribe so you can see these kinds of posts. But it was specifically about this particular period of time hosting an overlapping of worlds, and that there would be two dimensions really sitting directly on top of one another, the old and the new. And which one, the one that got our attention, the one that we were choosing to give our attention, is the one that we were going to continue to perpetuate as we move into the new chapter. And so this Pluto Ceres thing and this new moon, and we have all this fixed energy here at this period of time, and all this planting energy here in Taurus. Taurus specifically really deals with a lot of fertile energy, the energy of the body, the ground, and bringing forth fruit and harvest in many ways. What we have going on is a moment where we're solidifying and locking in that which we have our attention on right now. And so it's really important that you're taking action on and you're focused on the things that you really want to see unfold further in your world. Okay. There's a choice point here, which is important to understand. And we're going to be talking about this for the remainder of the year as Pluto is squaring the nodal axis. And you'll see the south node here at the tail end of Scorpio, and the north node up here, the tail end of Taurus. It's going to back up and go in here into Aries, and it'll move from south node will move from Scorpio to Libra here in another few weeks. But this square, that retrograde square that Pluto is providing to the nodal axis, is really special. It's very unique. Spoke about this at length in Star School 301, North Node Mastery. So students who are in that class, you'll recall that when we have a planet in retrograde square to the transiting nodes, collectively, we move into a period of time that we call a crossroads or a choice point. It's an opportunity to make some really key and life-changing decisions. And that's what we have this year with Pluto in retrograde square to the nodal axis. It's also opening up those nodes to become a portal to pull in Plutonian themes for us to work with. We have a releasing here of old creations, because we have the creation goddess down there having a conversation with the south node. She's in retrograde conjunction with the south node, and she's also squaring Pluto at the same time, who's also in retrograde. And so this is really important to understand that it's the retrograding action in concert with the nodes that are opening the nodes up to facilitate and work like a portal. And when they work like a portal, basically a doorway, it's the planets that are in conversation with them, in retrograde conversation with them. Those planets are the vibration and frequencies, circumstances, and people that are getting yanked in or released out. Okay. And so with the Pluto square to the nodal axis, what's getting yanked in or released out are themes that are Plutonian. So we're talking about themes that have to do with fear, control, and manipulation, but also that have to do with power, authority, and the ability to stand in and act from our own power and authority here in this lifetime. We also have with creation goddess in the mix, because Pluto's at that square. Just let me put a period on that sentence really quick. It's about making choices aligned with, is it going to be fear or is it going to be power? Am I going to manipulate and control, or am I going to confront my fear and step into owning my power in the circumstance? So crossroads, choice is the theme there with Pluto. With creation goddess retrograde conjunct the south node, this is a conversation about our old creations that are getting released, or creations, creative projects, and creative power, because she's also speaking with Pluto, who deals with power, coming in from past lives and resurrecting themselves in a new way now. Typically, when things come in from a past life, it's either for, closure, completion in some way. The tools, the consciousness, the teachers are available for closure at this moment in time and this timeline. Or it's because we're ready to take it to the next level. We're ready to work with it again in a new way. There's a new space available for it here on Earth. So you're bringing it in from a past life to continue on the good work you were doing previously. It's going to be different for different people. For all of us, it will require a dance here with the way Pluto says there's no access to power without confronting what scares you first. And the only way to get into this fertility energy, this abundance energy, this prosperity and growth, this nurturing and light energy that the North Node holds for us, is really being willing to transmute our fear into power by looking directly at it and facing it. With the creation goddess piece, there can also be, for some, a change in the status of mothering and motherhood for some, because we also, in the mix, we have Ceres. Here we were talking about Ceres speaking to the new moon in a trine here. We also have Haumea, the creation goddess here, speaking to the new moon. That's Haumea, the creation goddess. She's speaking to the new moon. She's in conjunct, but she's definitely speaking to the north and the south node. So she's for sure in play. And then the moon herself, the moon itself speaks to motherhood and mothering and female authority figures. And so in the zodiac, when I'm reading, the only mother that I read that is not included in this deep mothering conversation is Chariklo. She's not included in the conversation, but she's nevertheless still, like, to have three of the mothers activated at a lunation, like kind of all at one time, really speaks to a shift in the relationship to mothers and female authority figures during this season. For some of you, this is going to bring like literal conception, getting pregnant, for others, giving birth. For others, this is your children graduating, leaving the nest in some way, and moving on to their next chapter and opening up a new chapter for you as an adult parent to adult children who no longer are dependent in the way that they once were. And so lots of shifts here in the realm of connections with women and women authority figures, and for women in relationship to their own authority, right? In relationship to what does it mean, and redefining what does womanhood mean for you and femininity mean for you. Recall that, and I spoke to you guys about this. Maybe I didn't speak to you guys on the lunar update. I might have, but I definitely spoke to you. If you're on my private list, I sent you an email to talk about this, where I shared that the word that I was given for the month of May was choice. And that I mentioned for sure on the lunar update and in other places, definitely to the private list, that there's two worlds sitting on top of one another. And Mercury retrograde, thank goodness, now direct. Really happy to be on the other side of this energy. Mercury now direct, but during the retrograde period, really showed us what we outgrew and what it was time to release our agreement and permission for it to exist in our world. So again, with Mercury, the access point was thought and communication. So hopefully during that Mercury retrograde, the last 3 weeks, you were able to keep focused on what you wanted and choose to respond new, different in the face of the old popping up, because it was definitely going to pop up. Hopefully, you had new ways to respond to either old mental stories and chatter, because it would have come up, whether it was in the dream state or worry or chaos and confusion in the mind, or like just concern. Well, what if so and so does this? And what if it plays out that way? Hopefully, you had new ways of dealing with old trauma and pain, because that would have resurfaced. It would have brought itself back up. During this period of time, during that Mercury retrograde, and new ways of responding to criticism, new ways of responding to the same old argument, the same old conversation. And this may mean it surfaced during this time that you have some skills to learn, right? With as the old was having its conversation with you, and simultaneously the new was demanding some attention, and the internal choice point was going, you're gonna have to choose. It may have really surfaced for you, in order for me to choose the new, I've got to get some new skills to truly step into my next chapter. I need some education. And that's all good. Now's the time to embark on learning whether it's, one-on-one with a teacher or in a group or online or off. If you're wanting new, believing for new, but you realize during the Mercury retrograde, I've got no idea how to operate in this new space. I don't know how to do it. I see I need to, but I don't get it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Then this is the time in the next 40 days before July 1st to really educate yourself and find your educators. That's 40 days from now, and that's roughly when Mercury catches up with the sun after its retrograde departure from the sun. And so this is a great 40-day window to reset, because at that catch up point, the sun will be, with the sun, it will be a full moon in Capricorn. So we're building between now and then to put Capricornian structure in place to ground the dreams we dreamt in the first 4 months of the year. And that all really kind of started here in this month in May. Like I said, there's all this fixed energy here. And the gifting of the fixed signs, the fixed modes, and the fixed modes are Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, and Leo. The gifting that they provide to humanity is the capacity to stand, come hell, come high water. If you want something to exist under any circumstances, fixed sign energy is what will allow a thing to persist and sustain against all weather, all circumstances, and last. And so we have this opportunity. Like I said, it was a lot of cardinal energy the first 4 months of this year. We've moved from cardinal energy into fixed energy. Cardinal energy initiates, it's the begin anew, it's the plant new, do new, act new, behave new. Now we're into now sustain the change energy. And that's the fixed energy here. And that's exciting with all of this. I like to see that. And it's really anchored majority wise by, well, all this, what we have going on in Taurus. We have some placements in Aquarius and placements in Leo, but it's really what's going on up in Taurus, which is about that fertility, that watering energy, that nurturing energy, that valuing it energy that is really giving us access to locking it in. Okay. And so it's critical, like I mentioned earlier, to choose to be in the new if new is what you actually want. And with Pluto in the mix, it's only, like I said, being enhanced by Ceres, it's also critical to really stop, end, cut off, change directions on what's not working. Cut your losses from continuing to flow in the things that just, they're sucking your life force. And instead, call in the new, stand in it, act like it. In other words, like I said, the trick here is to choose. My favorite part about this moment is the aid from the Jupiter conjunction with the North Node. I really like to see Jupiter in his new sign there, pulling us toward faith, hope, optimism, and possibility. That is what Jupiter does. The North Node pulls us toward whatever the North Node happens to be touching. And right now it's touching Jupiter, which expands wherever he's at. And he's at that 0-degree mark of Taurus, which is really about locking in the nurturing, the fertile energy of what it is we literally just called in during Aries season. And so as he enters the sign of fertility, it's like adding fertilizer to all of our efforts. And this is so exciting. I love this. And I'm going to be talking about love here specifically in a moment, because there's some very fascinating stuff going on here for those of you on a love journey. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. But this is really the time where if you are feeling like, okay, yeah, I do know what I want, I'm just not sure how to create it. Or during that Mercury retrograde, yeah, my stuff came up. I saw it, I couldn't escape it, and I need to figure out how to like shift out of it. Like I saw my pattern repeated. And Moon, you were talking about all this new, and all I could see was like my old up in my face. Like it came back to haunt me. If that was the case during the Mercury retrograde, then now's a good time to book a reading before we get to the end of May, while the two dimensions are still overlapping, because we can still call in a lot of new and get kind of double for the trouble, get kind of wind in the sails, get momentum here with the stuff that is in the universe right now. The planetary energies are providing a significant amount of solid support for us to like call it, still claim it, still dial it in and be able to receive it this year. So you can book over at kmoonastro.com. And then just below this video, there's a link to my website if you need any help trying to manifest or understand how to manifest your new. Talk with me before the end of this month so that you can lock it in. Okay. So that you can write your new story in love and or money. Now, speaking of love, speaking of money, we would be amiss if we didn't talk about our girl Venus here in Cancer, having an oh so lovely conversation here with Chiron that's going to perfect in the next 10 days. Okay, so here's the deal. For all of us, and some of you who are planetarily sensitive, you've already felt it because the conversation is building as opposed to declining or waning. The Venus talking to Chiron situation is dredging up some old wounds when it comes to love or when it comes to money. Where we've felt or took on the story that we're somehow not enough, have current agreement with old perceived abandonment, and where we're giving it present time access to our new story. This is what we're going to have been be seeing, especially at the closure of this Mercury retrograde. So you may have, you know, old conversation around, people like me just never make money like that. People, my family has never been rich with Venus in Cancer. Or you may have some story about, like my mom was divorced, my grandma was divorced, my great grandma was divorced, and now I'm on the brink of divorce. Um, you may have that kind of hanging out in vibrational escrow in your consciousness. And you may have agreement that's unconscious that's now surfacing as like, holy cow, I just didn't realize that I was hanging out in that vibe, in that frequency, and allowing that story to be true and real for me. You may have some sort of story about being the one who's never chosen, always abandoned, or always cheated on, etc., etc. That kind of stuff is supposed to be surfacing at this time. It has divine purpose. Either a situation may unfold that mirrors back what's still anchored in your third dimensional consciousness that needs your attention to weed it out, get it out of your garden. Or it just may be something that's, kind of circling, looping in your mind, kind of like sharks around your life raft of new. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't like get my mind to just shut up about this thing. Um, Especially because we have Mercury sextiling this Venus from Venus's home sign. Okay. And so it's going to show us where our agreement with the identity of woundedness stands between us and a new love story or us and a new money story at this time. Now, as I always say, like I said, it's divine purpose here. It's supposed to show up, and that's to reveal where the work is in the next 40 days. It's to show us where we need education. It's to help us step into a new identity in love and or money. And the square is actually a beautiful thing. A lot of astrologers say, oh no, squares cause tension. They're a bit of a problem. But I actually find squares really constructive. They facilitate motivation for better choices. They give us exactly the right pressure to say, look again, make some better choices. You can do it. And with Chiron, it's literally that choose. You can either identify with the wound or you can identify with the wisdom, but it is impossible to occupy the ocean and the heavens at the same time. So if you're super stuck, which is, I have been there myself, but I have found that gratitude is my easy access tool. That being grateful that what happened to me before is not what's happening now, that my old response that just made stuff worse is not my response today. That who so and so was that did something that I didn't understand that may have felt like it hurt me, that isn't they are not that person today, or that they aren't even in my life today. The agreement with a new frequency and identity for me has been so strong that they have vibrated right on out of my space. There's something to be grateful for in that. And better still, thank God or thank the universe that I have had the courage and good sense to set some boundaries and stick with them and choose my own peace over an identity of powerlessness. So you get the idea. Gratitude, especially in all of this Taurian energy, is a powerful fertility and fertilizing tool that we can use to choose our focus on the new if we don't believe we can access anything else or nothing else is clear in this moment. We can go to gratitude. We can be grateful for progress, grateful for movement, even the new things revealing themselves in hints and glimmers. We can soak, we can relish, we can wallow in that. We can talk about that instead of relentlessly remembering, replaying, respeaking, rewriting the wound, the old, the problem. Okay. And that's really some of, to make that transition in Chiron's own life in the mythology of having the identity of I'm so different. Why was I abandoned? Why do people not like me? And to really stand in the authority as healer and teacher and guide that he came to serve in that capacity in Mount Olympus. Chiron really would have to get to a place of acceptance of what was and its unchangeability and acceptance of who he was. And then from acceptance, go into appreciation and approval. And that's a really key mindset shift if you're in a place of being stuck, of moving out of how can I fix what's wrong and move into acceptance, appreciation, and approval for what's right in front of me and what's now that is going really well. Okay. So that's one of the key ways to work with that Venus square Chiron energy if you're finding triggers are showing up in love or money at this time. All right. Now, with Mars trine Neptune, this is a really fancy energy here. It's one of my favorites. I love seeing Mars and Neptune in conversation. Um, there's a real sense that in in doing this, that el in doing the elevation of identity for ourselves in love and money, of really recognizing, yeah, I gotta step up. I gotta cut off my ties with running that old story. I gotta knock it off. There's a real recognition that in doing this, in changing ourselves when it comes to these two areas, that we have some real potential to elevate everyone else around us and to go for it. Even if it's selfishly or selflessly, everyone wins at this time if we're making those changes in this kind of energy, it's a benefit for everyone. And I really like to be able to report on that and share it, because that may be part of the motivation access that you have. Like, even if you're like, man, I don't know how and I don't know what, but I've got a kid I've got to feed. So I'm just going to have to just try something. I'm going to have to just make an effort, right? There's this recognition that if I take this on, it's beneficial to the people around me. Yeah. We've also got Saturn trining this Venus, which is another energy that I typically like to see. Some people may say, no, Saturn and Venus are bad, but not necessarily. Saturn will facilitate commitment and follow through when things are fully aligned. Saturn will draw boundaries around a thing when things are fully congruent and solidify it. And so, I really like to see, because Venus is in Cancer, where there's emotional alignments, real integrity, and congruence, whatever we're emotionally invested in and paying attention to at this time. Saturn from water sign Pisces and Venus from water sign Cancer are going to allow us to deepen that, foster that, grow that, water that. The universe is literally, with these combinations, throwing fertilizer down on top of wherever our attention is. And I find that really juicy. I find that really exciting, because it just means it's like, I have laid down some effort here in the first 4 months of the year to facilitate some newness in certain areas. For some of you, it's about love. For others, it's about money. For some, it's about health or job or career. For some of you, it's about family. And whatever you have thrown down, you're literally going to get multiples back under this kind of energy. So hopefully you've been conscious and intentional about your time and your choices. Okay. And with Mars, Jupiter, and Pluto in a nice little T square, again, this is not something that you'll hear most astrologers talk about as positive, but frankly, I'm living for this energy. I'm like, yes, please do this. Make us different. I'm kind of sick of the old. Let's do something new, guys. I like to see this. T squares, yes, tension, yes, a sense of like locked in, must change, have to shift. And this T square can become a grand cross if you're including Haumea, the creation goddess. If you're funky free like me in your astrological practice, what this gives is a real empowerment. That's Pluto and motivation. That's Mars to just hit the reset button and begin again in this energy if you need to as well. And so I really want to emphasize that even though we're coming to the close of this particular season of like two dimensions sitting on top of each other, the old and the new, and the season of kind of planting new, it's not too late. You haven't missed it. Just start today. Use Mars's emotional motivation from water sign Cancer to clearly define your needs, and Jupiter's fertility energy from Earth sign Taurus, and Pluto's power for the quantum and quantum movement to play some overnight catch up from air sign Pluto in Aquarius, or from Pluto's movement in air sign Aquarius. Use these three to stay focused on the answer to the question, what's the best that could happen? Right? And just just jump in. There's such positive energy for making change now, like right now. Is there tension here? Yes, absolutely. Can it manifest negatively? Yeah, sure. If we choose darkness and we choose to focus on darkness, darkness is always going to show itself. That's just the nature of the realm and the nature of darkness. And frankly, it's the nature of our power here as creative beings incarnate. we choose to focus on darkness, yeah, we can call in more of that with this, with Pluto and Mars. We can focus on their darkness, but we don't have to because they're not inherently dark energies. They're neutral. And how they present is based on how we choose to work with them. Okay. So we can call in and wield the light with their raw material, and then we'll walk in and live in the light. Okay. Also, regarding love, I'm not done. We've got this fun Juno speaking to Chariclo situation here, which I also really like to see. So, Juno is our commitment planet and asteroid. She's the original wife of Jupiter. And kind of no matter what went down in their marriage, she's the only wife of Jupiter. Well, he married other people, but she's kind of like recognized as the official wife of Jupiter. Whatever went down in their marriage, Jupiter stuck by him, or Juno stuck by him. Juno's capacity for commitment and follow through, and her capacity to stand in the light side of commitment and what it means to be committed is further endowed at this point by Chariclo in the way that Chariclo is giving us benefit. Chariclo acts as the divine intercessor. And so, where there has been any sort of loss in the world of partnership, at this time through your prayers and kind of spoken word or written word, because we've got both of them in air signs, which deal with communication and mind. Through your prayers, through your spoken word, through your written word, there is help on the other side, whether you work with the Holy Spirit or God, Allah, Abba, Source, whether you speak with, ancestors or angels. There's a reminder here that you only need to ask, and what was taken from you will get returned to you better than what it is that you lost. It won't come in the same shape. That's typically not how resurrections work. It'll come back in a new format, but it'll come back better than how it was when it was taken away. And so I really like to see that, especially in a moment where there's just like, again, two dimensions sitting on top of each other. The word of the month is choose. Figure out what you're focused on. Choose what you want. Ready, fire, aim, go. Or ready, aim, fire, go. Like just jump in, make something happen here. And you have a lot of kind of cosmic wind in your sails to be able to get and call down exactly what you want, heaven on earth, in this beautiful energy. Okay. And anchoring all of this through kind of the close of this year, we've got in the background Neptune and Pluto in conversation. And this conversation presents itself as a connection to spiritual power through this period of time. It allows us to anchor in our spiritual abilities and a spiritual approach to power that drives this change in our lives. So this is really in the background, is connecting to higher power, connecting to spirit as we do all of this. All right. So I think it's a very powerful and exciting and beautiful time for change and for watering the seeds that we've planted thus far. I'm going to go now into first look and talk to you guys about the full moon in Scorpio, which is coming up in just a quick couple weeks. If you found resonance in the video, definitely hit that like button. And if you want to talk with me about how you can facilitate your new, you know where to find me, kmoonastro.com. Definitely book before May is fully sold out, or even early June. If you can get it, that would probably be best. Okay, I stand corrected. It is a full moon in Sagittarius. And this is our first look at it. Here's our full moon right there in Sagittarius. Let's see who she's talking to. Where does the energy progress from our new moon in Taurus? Looks like she's having a bit of a square conversation there with Saturn. So we've got a nice T square here with the sun, the moon, and Saturn. It's loose, but it's there nonetheless. It looks like she is definitely having a conversation by trine with Chiron. And looks like, let's see, got a bit of a trine here from Pallas and Mars over in Leo. Okay, and these would be the main factors. A bit of a sextile here from Chariclo, but we'll deal with her when we get there. Main factoring stories show us reveal some interesting truths because Chiron's going to be so in the mix at this full moon in Sagittarius. Now, Chiron was busy talking to Venus at the new moon in Taurus. Okay, that conversation begins to wane, but it's still active over the next 2 weeks. Okay, so this thing about love and money that I was talking about with the full moon in Taurus or the new moon in Taurus, that remains active all the way through this period of time, the beginning of June. Okay, so the triggers will come up, they'll come up intentionally. We talked about how to work with those. Let's see what else is happening here. This Mars trine is opening us up to new actions and actions that are deeply focused on getting new results, that are really focused on acting on our truth and in our sovereignty. And this square from Saturn was speaking a little bit to Venus at the last lunation. Okay, but that's done. But with Saturn speaking to the new moon in square formation, this brings about a tension between the things that we've committed to and the things that we want to do. And it asks us to reshape our commitments so that our commitments are either stretchable and expandable and able to accommodate the new us that we're becoming or the new thing that we're building, and or they complete. Those commitments come to a completion and a closure if they're not able to do that. So this full moon in Sagittarius is going to bring some truth. Sagittarius is a sign of truth. It's also a sign of liberation and freedom in many ways, and our faith and our belief systems. It's going to illuminate where we've outgrown some of our commitments in service of being able to commit to the kind of trailblazing that we've started at the beginning of the year. And there'll be an opportunity to really bring in some of the wisdom of the kind of self-renewal we've been about with Chiron there. This is juicy. Okay, yeah, I like seeing that because there's a real kind of like self-investment in terms of the like believing that we're enough, that we have enough, we are enough, we can be enough to get done what we want to be able to do. And I like to see that. This is really positive in terms of our continued march into a new chapter here in our lives. It'll be interesting. I haven't gotten the word yet for June. If you're on my private list, you'll get that from me as we get closer there. And you can sign up for the private list below this video. There's a link to do that. But yeah, there seems to be something in the world of kind of self-investment and really self-honoring here that becomes really important at the full moon in Sagittarius, and like really honoring our truth unapologetically and reshaping life as we know it in the outer to line up with our inner world and our inner reality. So again, this is fascinating how this stuff works. Really important to be choosing to line up with light, to line up with newness, to line up with what it is you truly want. Keep your attention, your mind, and your mouth in that direction and release fixation on things that are truly complete and done with. So, because this full moon in Sagittarius is going to really bring a lot of anchoring to wherever it is we've chosen is right for us. And that Saturn square to the full moon is really demanding, like, okay, I'm going to reshape your commitments to fit whatever you have chosen. Just make sure you're choosing consciously, is all. All right. Good stuff. I'm excited about it. There's still a ton of fixed energy going on at this full moon in Sag, which we'll talk about when we get there. If you like this video, please subscribe. You want to get a reading with me? I'm over at kmoonastro.com. Really excited to see and hear your stories of new manifestation in the comments below. Take great care and bye for now.